Tom, thanks for joining us. Everyone knows your character, Jonathan Pye.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if everyone does.
Well,
but, you know.
I think a lot of the people who are watching this interview will do.
Okay, yeah.
How was he born and why?
Why is easy because I trained as an actor and I wanted to be an actor, and for 20 years I was an out of work actor, and then I thought I can't do this anymore, so I thought I'd create my own work, really, sort of as a last roll of the dice, and I'd had this character in my head about this news reporter who, the premise being quite a fairly normal sketch that would be in any comedy sketch show. What does a news reporter do between takes? And I realised pretty quickly it was the politics that people were tuning in for, not so much the comedic conceit, but the commentary in a way. So I kind of accidentally became a political satirist, whereas to me it was originally meant to be just a very broad comedic conceit.
Did you base the character on anyone?
Not really. There's a YouTube video of Peter Sissons, the stalwart BBC News presenter of old, no longer with us, and it's a little clip on YouTube of him between, maybe they'd gone to the sport or something, and he's just watching The Weakest Link, and he's really rude about Anne Robinson. He said something really vulgar about her. Now that was like an inspirational moment, because you go, there you go, you've got behind the curtain of this very prescribed way of news reporters talking, and everyone's human, and kind of blooper reels and things like that. From a very early age, it was always the news reporters and the news presenters. When things went wrong, it was so much funnier because they're so formal, as opposed to an actor mucking up their lines, which you get, well, they can just do another take, but something happening live on air. So that was sort of an inspiration. But I think if you were to describe him from comedically, the inspiration, he's sort of Alan Partridge mixed with Malcolm Tucker. Those are the two kind of, if they were to have a, yes, it's the child of Partridge and Tucker, really.
The success of your career has been helped by the chaos and the drama of the Conservative government. Do you really want that to end?
Yes, I do. Yes, I really do want the chaos of a Tory government to end. No, that's where me and Pye would be in agreement. Yes, it is undeniable that, I started where roughly around Cameron winning a majority. That was kind of where Pye started. But within a year or so of that, suddenly Brexit happened. And not long after that, suddenly Trump was a thing. And both of those incidents have, I think people have been more politically engaged because they want answers to those sorts of things. The more populism has become a thing, the more the reasonably minded of us politically have looked with our jaws open at the phenomenon of Trump. And I've always been pretty balanced with regards to Pye. Pye's probably a little bit more lefty than I am, but he's old school left wing. And by virtue of that, I always felt that he would have had a real conversation about leaving the EU. He understood why people left the EU. And therefore, I've always tried to be a bit balanced with that. But Trump, Trump definitely helped my career, and I'm sorry for that.
We've had 14 years of Conservative government, and it feels to me like a lot of comedians are in the same boat as you, as they've been attacking the Tories for this long. If the Tories lose the next election, what happens to that type of comedy?
Generally, political satire seems to be from the left attacking the right. I think political satire did kind of have a dip during the Labour years, although there was plenty to satirise, particularly with Blair, and a lot to take him to task with. It will be odd to see how Pye copes with a Labour government, because right now Pye wants a Labour government because that means the Tories are gone. But the one thing I would say about Pye is the one thing that makes him more angry than the Tories is when his own side gets it wrong. So I think there'll probably be room for a month or so of jubilation that we've got rid of them, but I can't see him letting Starmer off the hook. And I think there's a very good chance we'll get another Trump presidency, so that will be something to go for. But I think it will be interesting for me to see how that affects him as a character and how that affects me as a writer and a performer. But with the show that I'm doing right now, the live show, when I started writing it, I did kind of... Normally, I'm pretty good at attacking both the right and the left. In this show, I did, although the left come in for it, that kind of champagne socialist element of the left, that certainly is one of the targets. But from a Westminster politics point of view, I did think if the polls are right, I might not have a live show about the Tories for another 5, possibly 10 years. So I really do give them both barrels, looking back at the 14 years of chaos. And the next live show I do will no doubt be, hopefully, about a different government.
You do seem to suggest, at one point in the show, you say people should put in number 10 this person who's slightly less bad than Rishi Sunak, i.e. Keir Starmer, to pick the best of a bad bunch. Do you think that just shows we're all doomed?
I think he's a little bit... I don't think in the show that is that explicit. He does... I think there is something to be... I speak to a lot of people who say, why bother? They're both the same. Both candidates, not that we live in a presidency, but let's be honest, we're talking about who's going to be our next prime minister. I think anyone who says they're all the same, that there isn't a choice to be had in this coming election, I think they're wrong. I think they're demonstrably wrong. As I point out in the show, one, our present incumbent is an ex-hedge fund manager, and the potentially next prime minister is a human rights lawyer. One's nearly a billionaire, one isn't. I think those distinctions are important. I think left-wingers are not very good at compromising, in the sense of you're either with me 100% or you're not. And I know that Keir Starmer doesn't necessarily inspire a lot of left-wing people, but he is, in my mind, certainly better than the alternative. And also, the Tories have had 14 years with, 5 prime ministers, each progressively worse than the last. If nothing else, it's worth giving the other lot a shot. Another moment in the show is where Jonathan reveals that he pays for his son's public school fees, and that every one of us is a hypocrite. And you say that's fine. If we admit to being a hypocrite, that's all right. Is it all right for politicians to be hypocrites? There is a difference, isn't there? I mean, yes, I guess the theme of the show really is about hypocrisy and how... I mean, I often find sometimes it's a really useless accusation to throw at someone. You hear it all the time in the sort of the debate about, trying to save the planet, right? People who are really doing everything they possibly can to try and save the planet. But you take a flight to go on holiday. So as if transgressing at all means you should do nothing at all. And I don't think it's a very useful way of living life, right? Just accusing people of hypocrisy. But there is a big difference between that and politicians preaching one thing and doing something else. I think they should be held to a higher standard. Quite often, politicians, when accused of doing something wrong, refuse to apologise. They'll say every other word but sorry. Do you think it would be easier for them if they were happy to apologise when they've got something wrong? A lot of the time, you'd have a huge amount of respect for them if they did just say, and I think, the economy is not in a great state. No one ever from the Conservative Party goes, we mishandled Brexit, right? We have made some errors along the way. It's always somebody else's fault. But when they demonstrably make an actual mistake, apologise for it. Because then you look human. But I do sometimes wonder whether the press is it's this vicious circle, because if you misspeak, the press will pounce on you. That's why it's sort of the chicken and the egg. Politicians never say anything. They just spout the party lines, because if they divert a little bit, you'll pounce on them. So they don't say anything at all. So I do wonder whether there's that sort of vicious cycle, and maybe we should give them a little bit more rope to maybe hang themselves. Politics has become very tribal. Your show does play into the tribal side of it. You
basically alienate the right wing. Are you happy to exclude them from the show, or do you want people who on the right wing to attend?
I think there's a couple of points there that. Well, firstly, I do have Tory voters who come to watch the show, and afterwards they're like, "I vote Tory." I think a lot of reasonable, natural, lifelong Tory voters have looked at what's happened, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, the end of Boris, what Liz Truss being a thing. Rishi Sunak is not a particularly competent prime minister, and he is a multi-millionaire hedge fund manager. So I know a lot of reasonable, natural Tory voters whose jaw is on the floor at the state of the party they would naturally vote for. So I don't think it's alienating in that respect. And also I think there is, Pi says at the start of the show, I'm not going to spend the evening having a go at Tory voters. And he has a go at the politicians, but then he exposes himself as a snob and a hypocrite, and rather extremely, hopefully hyperbolically, kind of starts laying into Tory voters and what people think Tory voters are like. But I don't think it's certainly not going to be to every Telegraph reader's taste, let's be honest. But I don't think I've never ever, unless it's a joke on Pi, I've never had a pop at a Brexit voter for being racist or stupid or thick or I find it gross. I find that gross, and I kind of feel that about Tory voters. I find it a bit gross when people, and also it's tactically not. You're not going to win. Do you want their vote or don't you? When it's politicians attacking people voting not for them, like when Hillary Clinton called all people who were thinking about voting for Trump a basket of deplorables. Well, you just lost the election, because you either want people to vote for the party that you want them to vote for, or you don't. And by just hurling insults at them, you're not going to win them over, are you? You're not going to win their vote.
I've seen the show,
yes.
But for someone who hasn't, what can they expect?
Well, I hope most people who've never seen me live kind of go, how is this going to work, this kind of 3-minute online thing? So you have to work out, why would Pi be there? He's not self-aware as a satirist, he's a news reporter. Why would a news reporter be in a theatre giving a lecture for an hour or so or whatever? I always sort of write the show with 2 people in mind. That I assume that half the audience are sort of diehard fans who are here for the politics and the satire and all, and they know me. And I always assume they've dragged their partner along who couldn't care less and is dreading it. And I'm kind of writing the show for both of them. So I want it to be funnier than people expect. I want it to hopefully make people think. I want people to go to the pub afterwards and have a chat about it. And I agreed with that bit, but I didn't agree with that bit. So I hope it's kind of funny and rousing and hopefully sort of theatrically kind of impressive in places, and just always try and make it sort of exceed people's expectations, I hope.
Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.